I'd like to now move to Sister Dr. Geetha Govindarajan. She loves to walk the path that's less traversed by many. And, and that has motivated her to engage in some of the toughest neighborhoods in the country. So the question to you is, how has Swami inspired you to work in a tough neighborhood, and what has inspired you to actually engage with this population?
Sarah, it's super awesome to be here. I was not expecting to be here. And so it's always part of the concept of loving the uncertainty principle has written very high in my life. And I find myself speaking to all of you. There's a whole bunch of thoughts that come when you phrase that question. I think the simplest way I can say it is I'm a product of 3 or 4 World Youth Conferences that have happened in the August presence of our beloved Bhagwan. And I think after the first World Youth Conference, when there were 3-4 things that came out of it that I remember, and I've taken that to heart. One was, do not wallow in mediocrity. Go out there, get out of your comfort zone and do something and inspire the world. 2, Yogashema effect, and it's really legit because it happens. You do God's work and He works overtime for you. And I can give you numerous experiences that pretty much, emphasize that fact. The third part of it is a concept that I heard for the first time in the World Youth Conference with our Malaysian uncles who have been really an inspirational guideposts and who speak through Swami's messages to me. And one of that was this concept of dare to be divine. And I think that pretty much triggered something that was undeniable as an impressionable teenager at that time, to come back to the city of Chicago and pick the worst neighborhoods in the inner city, which was the Inglewood area, and go out and do things. And at that time, it was very different than what our centers were used to, which was sandwich projects and things like that. But to adopt a community and go there and do things was something unheard of in the Midwest. And so a group of us who were equally empowered by the World Youth Conference went out there and did a lot of work. Part of it was my interest being in healthcare made us become part of this community where a free clinic was set up. As I moved along through my training, I realized that I was interested in global health, and I would do all these medical camps or medical missions through other organizations and also through the Sai organization. But I felt that there was always a gap left behind after we left the place. So there was never a sustainable movement in, making an impact or measuring your impact. And so I felt the best way, and at that time I was looking for ways to serve, and an opportunity presented itself in the form of a 3-month gig at a community health center in the south side of Chicago. I had no idea what that was, and I decided to take a plunge and go there for a 3-month assignment. I thought I would do that, figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and come back and do something else. Mind you, because I had so many different degrees that I didn't know how to kind of weave them all together. And 3 months has now turned into 9.5 years at the same location. And there's so much work to be done. It's incredible to see the level. There is no abject poverty that we see in Africa or in Southeast Asia. It's the unseen poverty of the inner city neighborhoods of our biggest cities. Chicago is ridden with violence through guns. There's a huge opioid epidemic. There is a huge drug infestation. So our impact as the Sathya Sai organization and taking the message of Swami to these communities is our biggest imperative. To see our continued work in this one specific location of Inglewood through the work by partnering with an organization called Port Ministries has been like the game changer for me and many of the youth that got to participate in those activities. And we went with the name SAI, which is Serve and Inspire, so to make it simple, but Swami's name is still on there. And we managed to partner and do a lot of health-related work in that space. Part of it was recognizing that sometimes healthcare doesn't mean that the patient has to come into our walls, but we go out into the community. So we would partner with the bread truck. Me and another young adult who was equally inspired to do it would go out to neighborhoods in the middle of the evening after our work was done. We would ride with the bread truck and we would do a lot of preventative health visits for our patients in the corners where we knew there was a lot of drug activity going on. What we realized was that there's definitely a lot of people who have access to healthcare but do not know how to come back into our healthcare systems. Two, there's a lot of mental health needs, which we have heard about over and over again in the during these last several days. And number three, there is a knowledge gap. They do not know how A leads to B. And it is our responsibility sort of to bridge that gap. So if we take even little tiny steps, I think we have the way to sort of make that spark go off. We don't need to recreate new things, but if we as organization could just be a bridge and strengthen the systems, the healthcare systems that's very fragmented, at least in the United States, and be a powerhouse to propel those healthcare systems to provide the help that's needed, I think our work would be done. And I think it may not come in the form of a medical camp, but it may come from a sustainable impact because it's run by the community, for the community, for the community, for those people that truly want to see, things change. And I think we have the ability to truly do social medicine because there's so much interest and there's so much talent within the organization amongst the youth. I think we just have to walk that one step and create a critical mass, and then the tipping point happens.